Sometimes we make plans for how we want our day to look, like being excited all day to come home from school and watch TV, and then you come home. Good morning, Kids Zone. I hope you had a wonderful week with your family and friends and that you shared laughter, time, and kindness. Today we're going to talk a bit about sharing what we have with those around us. Today's topic is generosity. This is a big word that means being kind, sharing, and giving what we have to help other people and look after one another. Today we're going to check out what Jesus has to say about generosity. Let's have a look at Luke's history of Jesus' life in Luke chapter 21, verses 1 to 2. As Jesus looked up, he saw rich people putting their gifts into the temple, offering boxes. He also saw a poor widow put in 2 very small copper coins. Let's take a moment to reflect. Who was more generous? The rich people who gave lots of gifts, or the poor widow who gave 2 coins? If you think the rich people who gave lots of gifts were more generous, stick your elbows in the air. And if you think the poor widow who gave 2 coins was more generous, put your opposite hand on the opposite shoulder. Have you chosen? Now, let's see how the rest of the story goes. After watching the rich people and the widow give to the temple, Jesus said, "What I am about to tell you is true. That poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these other people gave a lot because they are rich. But even though she is poor, she put in everything. She had nothing left to live on." Even though the widow technically gave less, Jesus saw that she had made a greater sacrifice to serve God. The Bible tells us to love God more than anything and never let anything else in our life become more important. Jesus tells us that this is especially hard for people who have a lot of things, like money and a house and cool clothes or toys. It can be really hard to give up the things that make us happy to focus on someone else's needs above our own. Take a second to imagine with me. Here are 2 coins. They belong to you. Imagine that these are the only things you own. You have some clothes on your back, but you have no home to go to, no food ready to eat later, and you don't know when you'll get money ever again. How do you feel about these coins? They're pretty important, eh? How would you feel if God asked you to give up your 2 coins? Is that a nice thought? Or does it feel a bit uncomfortable? I would be tempted to say, "Well, God, I know I'm supposed to give these to the poor, but I am poor. I need to take care of myself. I need these coins to pay for some food later. I don't have what those rich people over there have. How about if I give you 1 coin? Is that enough? Can you please promise me they'll definitely get some more money and a hot meal later today? Then I'll gladly give you a coin." Do you feel the same way? Now, let's take a look at what Jesus has to say about you and your 2 coins. In the Bible, he says, "Look at the birds of the air. They don't plant or gather crops. They don't put away crops in storerooms, but your Father who is in heaven feeds them. Aren't you worth much more than they are? Can you add even 1 hour to your life by worrying?" When God asks for us to be generous, we can trust that he knows what we need. He cares deeply about us and he will help us. We don't need to hold on to physical things like our coins, our toys, or our home. We can trust our Father in heaven to give us everything we need for each day. Even if we're not convinced it's enough, he knows best. And remember, generosity and sharing what we have looks different to different people. As long as we make sure that God is number 1 in our life and we listen to what he asks of us, he'll steer us in the right direction. Here are 3 examples of how you could practice being generous this week. We can be generous with what we have. If you have something that you don't use anymore, or that could bless someone else, try giving this to a charity shop so they can sell it and give the money to help people who need it. We can be generous with our time. Sometimes we make plans for how we want our day to look, like being excited all day to come home from school and watch TV, and then you come home and your cousin's visiting and they would really love for you to read a story to them. So you can be generous with your time by sacrificing what you wanted to do to make someone else happy. We can be generous with our prayers. Finally, sometimes someone is going through something we don't understand or that we can't help with. We don't have anything with us that could help them, but we can pray for them. This is such a powerful way to help those around us and serve others. And as always, here are 3 questions to keep the conversation going. Can you think of a time when someone was generous to you? Number 2, can you think of someone that you could be generous to? And number 3, I wonder, why does God give us good things and then guide us to give them to other people? That's all for today. See you next time.